Welcome to our Reiki Cafe webinar. We are so excited to be sharing with you guys the energetic power of Reiki. Obviously, I'm me, Isabel Wells, and then we have RJ here. And we are going to go ahead and just dive in. So I'll start by sharing a little bit about myself. I am Isabel Wells. A lot of you probably know me by Izzy. I'm kind of in and out of all corners of Reiki Cafe. I'm a Reiki Master since 2019. I've also gone through Christine's Chakra Clairvoyant certification. So I'm now certified through her as a shamanic Reiki practitioner and Chakra Clairvoyant coach. I'm also on my own in my own little business, a mindset coach and intuitive guide. I'm currently a full-time psychology student and researcher looking into trauma and how our mental perceptions impact our health from that. I have a huge passion for quantum physics and bridging the gap between science and spirituality. If any of you guys caught the podcast that I did last week, you guys heard all about the quantum perspective of Reiki, which we're going to dive into a little bit today. But like I said, I'm kind of in and out of all the corners of Reiki Cafe. I teach in our courses. I am kind of the graphic designer and social media manager. I build the website. I do all the things. So I am so excited and so honored to be with you guys today and to be able to share this all with you. And I'm so excited to see where this is going to take us.
And I'm RJ. I am also a Reiki master. I actually received my Reiki master with ReikiCafe University, and then I went on to the Chakra Clairvoyant coaching program, and I'm just less than 2 months from graduating there, and am also now a shamanic Reiki practitioner through Reiki Cafe as well. And my passion is as a holistic trauma coach. So with that, I guide a lot with mindset and abundance, also clairvoyant and intuitive. So I'll get messages and talk to guides, and I talk to all kinds of people, which is really fun. And they just kind of pop in a lot. So that's always entertaining. Sound healing therapy is amazing. I absolutely love that. And work with music throughout the day to help ground me or energize me. So very passionate about music. And my biggest passion is just walking with others on their journey to heal their trauma. And in that, we're healing the trauma, the triggers, the limiting beliefs, and really helping them to manifest their desired reality. So I've always known I wanted to help others and work with others. And it's only been the past few years that the universe has really just blessed my life and helped everything come together. So I'm really excited to be here, and I'm super excited that you are all here joining us for this conversation.
Beautiful. And I love that we both kind of have that trauma inclination, because I think that's such an important conversation and definitely something to dive into in the future. But for now, what you can expect from today, we're going to give you a brief overview of what Reiki is. I know many of you listening are Reiki masters. You're already well established in your practice, but it never hurts to dive back in, discover those roots, and really tap into what is Reiki at its core. We're also going to look at the quantum perspective of Reiki. So like I mentioned, if you guys heard the podcast from a couple weeks ago, you've gotten a taste of this, but we're going to recap it again today because it's a favorite topic of mine. We're also going to give a word on Reiki and why it works. We're going to talk about the importance of intention. And we're going to talk about, can Reiki stop working and what to do when it feels like you've lost that connection. And as I mentioned, you're going to want to stay to the end. We have a giveaway for 2 chakra analysis sessions, one with RJ and with me. So stay tuned to the end for that. But let's go ahead and dive in. So Reiki is, as all of you know, an energy healing technique that's used to promote relaxation, reduce stress, promote healing. It's really about tapping in with the energy that makes you at your very core, not you as a human, you as a spiritual being, tapping into that energy, that life force energy that creates everything, that animates everything, even the things like the desk or the chair you're sitting in. And that's really what Reiki means. If you look at the original Japanese kanji, you have Rei meaning universal and Ki meaning life force energy. So Reiki at its core is about connecting with that universal energy and using it to really tap into that resonance and create that clarity in the energy field. So it can be performed in person or distance. Many of you have had a session or have your own practices and have probably experienced it both ways. And that's something we'll touch on today, is why distance Reiki can be just as effective as Reiki in person, right? And we're also going to be talking about how Reiki can be used to guide and awaken the client's own energy field. So this is something that I think all of us have heard, that we are conduits for the energy. We're not channeling the energy directly. We're not creating the energy. We're not doing the healing, but we're holding that space. We're being that conduit to be able to channel that energy to our client. And I like to think of it, my favorite analogy for this is like a drinking straw. You have this straw that's hollow in the center so you can get the water from one place to another. And as a Reiki practitioner, that's really what you are. You are the straw. You are that channel, that conduit, that container that holds space for Reiki to flow from you to your client. I would love to know how you guys tell people about Reiki. When someone asks you, what is Reiki? What do you say? Because it's something that it is universal life force energy, and that energy is going to have so many different ways that it can be interpreted and explained. And there are so many different perspectives on what Reiki is, why it works. So I would love to know how you guys define Reiki. How do you share it with Reiki? RJ, when someone comes to you and asks what is Reiki, what do you tell them?
Oh goodness, excuse me. I will explain to them that it's a hands-on healing technique. I'll let them know that its origins are from Japan, and similar to what you did when you started to explain here. What does Reiki mean? And then it's interesting because I find that the people that come to me, they are just ready. But that's also, and I know we're going to talk about intention later, but that's also what I put out there, right? So for me, it's not a difficult conversation because people are asking and they're wanting. So we're able to jump right into this is how Reiki works. And I explain, again, similar to as you did, I'm a conduit and I simply allow the Reiki to flow down from my crown, fill me up, and overflow out through my hands. And sometimes I may place my hands, if I'm in person, on a client. I tend to be more my hands over a client than on. If they're comfortable with it and I get called to a very specific area, then I'll place my hands, and my clients are all ready for that. So it's fun because I get to jump right in and start having some really great conversations.
Absolutely. I think Reiki is one of my favorite topics to talk about just because it does spark so much interest and so many questions. And there are so many different ways that you can go with that conversation, because it's not just about a healing technique, it's about tapping into that universal energy. And that energy is in everything. It's in the thoughts you think, it's in the words you say, it's in you as a person, and it's in everything around you. So when you start talking about Reiki, yes, you are talking about this really beautiful healing modality, but it's also so much more than that. It's everything. It is that energy that connects us all. And so it can take you down so many different rabbit holes. And I love that you shared, RJ, that when your clients come to you, they're ready for that energy, because it is something that it has that presence, it has that awareness and that intention, and it guides you whether you're aware of it or not. And so when you start to connect to Reiki on your path, it'll feel like a flow, like you're just meant to be here. I shared earlier that I actually had no idea what Reiki was when I signed up for Reiki 1. I just heard the word one day and I was like, yes, that is what I'm meant to be doing right now. I don't know what it is. I don't know what I'm going to be doing with it, but it's where I need to be. And it took me down this really amazing, really topsy-turvy path to get me to where I am now that I never could have imagined. But it's just about tapping into that energy and letting it take you where it's going to go, because you don't get to plan it. You get to surrender and you get to let go and let it flow. And that's one of the beautiful things about Reiki, I think, is that it is so life-changing. I don't think I've met someone who began their Reiki journey and didn't have their life turned upside down in the best way afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, and I love some of the comments here. Reiki is energy healing, similar to acupuncture, but without the needles. I've heard that before too. I love that. Let's see. Renata had said that sometimes it's difficult to explain it, but then she went on to say it's an energy healing that promotes relaxation and stress reduction. When I meet with them, I explain chakras if I feel that's something are receptive to via conversation. So I love, really listening to where your client is, right? The person that you're talking to, where are they? And how can you explain Reiki for them? Because everybody's in a different place and everybody may hear it differently. So I know sometimes we have those conversations in the community. And that's really what I do. I will meet the client where they are and explain from there. So when I get asked that question, like, how do I explain? It's like, well, I do a lot of little things. It just really depends on the client. So I love, Renata, that you mentioned that you see where your client is. Kim said Reiki is energy healing for mind, body, and soul. And it's a beautiful complementary therapy that heals the whole person emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. I channel Reiki energy to remove energetic blocks in the chakra system to create a positive flow of energy for my clients' highest good. That is so beautiful, Kim. I think I want to save that. I like how you worded all
Yeah.
that.
Oh, I'm loving all of this. And I love that we talked about, RJ, how you shared that you kind of tailor your explanation of Reiki to your clients, because this is something that I'm really passionate about in the quantum perspective, because I think so often we see things, especially I'm in psychology and I used to be in nursing. And so I've been involved with people who are very scientifically inclined. And I think it's really natural in the society that we live in to want to have those facts, those concrete scientific examples of this works and this doesn't, because that's just the nature of the dual perspective that we are all living in right now. And so for me, finding that way to explain Reiki to, say, my grandfather, who is a mechanical engineer, is fascinating, because it's not about using the right words or finding the exact definition of what Reiki is. It's about finding that way, that opening you can create for someone so they can tap into Reiki however it works for them. So when we look at Reiki as a quantum perspective, I always like to start way back in your very first chemistry class. And I know all of you probably just offered a groan there, because nobody except for apparently me, because I'm weird, enjoys chemistry. But if you can think back to those days, whether it was in high school or in college, where you started with chemistry and you learned about atoms, how atoms are the building block of life. And if you look at an atom, what they're made of is electrons, protons, and neutrons, right? We've all been taught this. But what people sometimes skip over is the fact that protons, neutrons, and electrons are just energy. That's it. They're just particles of energy. And so science has already conclusively proven that everything is made up of energy. And what we do as Reiki practitioners is we tap into that energy, and we recognize that we are part of this vibrational world. We are living in a world that is fundamentally made up of energy. So if we are energy and everything else is energy, why wouldn't we be able to move it and clear it and channel it and let it flow? And one of the things that I often get asked here is, well, yeah, okay, so everything's made up of energy, but how can you possibly say that you can move, channel, and make it flow? And the thing is that I tell them is that we are all always acting with energy and interacting with it every single day. The only thing that keeps my hands from going through each other when I put them in a gassho position is an electrical pulse, because there is so much room in between the atoms that make up everything in the world that we should be able to just pass our hands right through one another. But we can't, because we have charges that are repelling each other. So even just the simple act of sitting in a chair or putting your hands together in a meditation, that is playing with energy because you live in an energetic world. And in order to interact with it, you have to interact with that energy. And so Reiki allows you to open up in a new way, in a different way, so that you can come into a conscious connection with that energy that is already flowing to and through and around and in you. And so when we look at it from a quantum perspective, it's about looking at these atoms, these protons, these neutrons, all of these particles that make up the world around us, and recognizing that we are already interacting with that energy. So how can we do that in a more conscious way? How can we accept that we are these energetic beings who do have this influence and this power with that energy? And this is where, again, if you guys listen to the podcast, I like to talk about the observer effect, because there's this thing in quantum physics where if a scientist watches an experiment, he changes the outcome just by the simple act of looking at it. So if looking at an experiment can change the outcome, obviously we have immense power to influence the flow of energy and to create healing through Reiki by the act of intention. And that's why we'll talk about intention later. Intention is so important. But the thing that's important here with this quantum perspective is that you are an energetic being. You live in an energetic universe, and you're constantly playing with that energy. So Reiki is just about bringing that to the next level, opening yourself up, allowing yourself to acknowledge that you are this energetic being, that you do have this freedom to play, that you can be a conduit and allow it to flow for the greatest and highest good. Reiki in this way, to me, is really about coming into a conscious connection with that energy, to really allowing yourself to open up and be that channel. Let yourself serve this energy that is already around you instead of interacting with it in a more unconscious way.